Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. I'm your host, Brandon Starr, and this is episode 130. It's titled Wrapped Up, and it's a standalone episode, so this is going to be a complete story today. It is part of the continuity that certain other stories have had, so you go back to the story Connections, for instance. That's sort of like a central one for this continuity. And so here we go. Hope you enjoy it. So, what brings a nice young white woman to see a decrepit old black man like me? The woman smiled and did not directly answer. May I close the door? People may talk, he said. She laughed. Let them, she said, and I'm not that young. I'm almost 50. Spring chicken to me, he replied. What was your name again? Nurse Gardner didn't say. The woman paused. You aren't on a first-name basis with the nurse who works where you live? I could be, but I'm not. Okay, I'm Sarah. Sarah what? Sarah Tomlinson. Nice to meet you, Ms. Tomlinson. I'm Louis Davis. Pronounced Louis, but spelled with an S, he detailed with a little nod at her phone, which she was holding like a notepad. So you're some kind of researcher? Yes, I'm documenting the lives of people born before World War II. Why me? There's enough of us to go around, for now. I've asked around. It sounded like you were someone who has had an interesting life, but hasn't told his story to anyone yet. That's what I'm looking for. Louis shook his head. I don't know if I even believe you, but it's nice to have company, so let's pretend you're telling me the truth. Please sit, he said, indicating the only chair in the small room. As she sat, he sat on the side of his bed, a bit formally. So what were you hoping to learn? Louis asked. She looked at him, and he could tell she was taking him in. He was tall, about 6 feet, if he could still pull himself to his full height, and nearly bald, having a very short stubble of gray hair, and no beard or mustache. His skin and eyes were about the same walnut wood color. His eyes were deep set, only part of which came from age, and, he knew, intelligent. He had the sort of taut thinness that happened to some people in old age. What was your childhood like? Oh, hell, Louis said. I grew up poor, just like everyone else in my neighborhood. Oakland was a lot smaller then. My folks did their best. What did they do? Mama raised the 4 of us. Daddy worked wherever he could. It got better when I, who was the youngest, was about 12. He got a job working on lines for the phone company. It was union, had benefits and all. After that, you probably could say we were middle class. But we'd all eaten beans for days on end a few times before that. Are any of your siblings still alive? No. The last, my sister Mary, died 3 years ago from lung cancer. She smoked right up till the end. I'm sorry to hear it, Sarah said. She even managed to sound like she meant it, he thought. And you? What did you do for school, for work? I was the only one to go to college. My older brothers and my sister, they were already on a different path. But I went to UC Santa Cruz, studied electrical engineering. Then I got a job with the phone company too. A good one. Daddy had seniority, but didn't really rise all that high in the ranks since he never graduated high school. I made as much money as him my first year on the job, or so I was led to believe. I never asked him directly. And then? Then I did that until I retired 15 years ago. Never married or kids? Nope. He could tell she was tempted to ask, why not? But had decided against it. Why here? She asked instead. Sorry? You've been here 3 weeks or so, right? She asked. Louis nodded. You had a successful career, no kids, no expenses, and this is, she said, lowering her voice, not exactly an expensive retirement home. You're wondering why I ended up here. She nodded and shrugged in a way that said, well, yeah. He smiled and looked at the floor. I made some bad investments, had some bad habits. Do you mean gambling? Yeah, he said. Then he looked back up at her. Gambling. She nodded. You've seen a lot of changes during your lifetime. What would be the biggest? Louis thought on that. Nothing's changed. Nothing? You lived through the Civil Rights era, through Vietnam, through the Cold War and its end, through the start of the internet, through Y2K, through 9/11. Maybe I don't understand what you mean. I've seen some bad things, some early on, some more recent. Nothing's changed. What did you see? Louis did not answer. Okay, Sarah said. There was a pause. Miss Tomlinson, I'm feeling very tired. I think I can't talk any more right now, you understand. Of course, she replied. She stood up and went to the door. I'm sorry if I've upset you. I tend to be a bit forward. It's one of the reasons they picked me for my position. I'm not upset, just tired. Goodbye, Miss Tomlinson. Goodbye, Mr. Davis. She left, and Louis relaxed. He put his head back on his pillow and waited. Miss Davis did not return. The sun went down, and still he did not move. After it was dark, Nurse Gardner opened the door to his room. Mr. Davis, you missed dinner. I hope I don't have to feed you. But there was no one in the room, and Nurse Gardner could not see anyone on his bed. He flicked the light switch. Nothing happened. Shit, another broken bulb. Really? He opened the door as wide as it would go, but the weak light from the hallway did not really illuminate the room. A small, dark thing rose up on the far side of the bed, near the blinded window. There's your hand. You fall off the bed, Mr. Davis? Nurse Gardner said. He strode across the room. Making my job hard, are you? When he got around the bed, Mr. Davis was not there. What the hell? Where are you? Nurse Gardner said. He raised the blinds, but the cloud cover and lack of outdoor lighting meant very little change in the room. I'll be able to see your silhouette if you're under there, Mr. Davis, he said. He got on his hands and knees. Let's just see what the hell is going on under there. He ducked down and immediately was attacked by something large and dark, unyielding, yet soft. He would have screamed, but something powerful was already wrapping around his mouth. Soon he was completely encased, except for his ears and nose, which seemed to have been purposefully left open to the air. Then he heard Louis Davis's voice. You piece of shit. I lost 3 friends in this rat hole. Frankie, Bill, Marilyn, and I found out it was all you. The man struggled mightily, but now the thing around his face was blocking off his air. He was spastic, thrashing as much as he could, desperate to break free or make some noise that might draw attention from down the hall. But it was hopeless. He may as well have been swallowed by a snake, a shark, or the night itself. A few hours later, the next shift's nurse came on and saw Mr. Davis's door open. She went to check on Mr. Davis, but saw his bed empty. She checked behind the bed and found Nurse Gardner's body, lifeless. An investigation did not find Mr. Davis, nor did he give a convincing reason for Nurse Gardner's death. He seemed to have had some sort of attack. He'd been unable to get oxygen to his brain, and had died. But there were no marks of a tool, or hands, or anything else that would indicate strangulation. DNA tests found only that relating to Nurse Gardner and Louis Davis, who had lived in the room a few weeks. If he'd been overpowered and perhaps suffocated, it could not have been by Mr. Davis, who was extremely old. His disappearance was suspicious. A hunt was conducted, but he was not found, living or dead. A report, secret and separate from any prepared by the police, was prepared. R. Regarding subject Louis Davis. Full facts not known. Subject is at large. Best analysis of likely events follows. Subject is likely one of us. Subject likely was of his apparent age. Subject seems to be able to take on a soft, almost boneless form. Enhanced video from camera hidden during interview, while mostly hidden by the bed, indicates that this form would have great strength and adaptability regardless of age. Unknown how bones change from standard human form to this unusual form. Subject known to have killed Nurse Kirk Gardner, but is unlikely to be a threat to others. Subject does not seem to have knowledge of our operations or of other humans possessing unusual powers. Given those facts, it is unlikely to be valuable to spend further effort tracking down the subject. There is no indication that he will live a longer than standard human life, and with no knowledge of us or our kind, any threat he might be will be gone soon. M. And that's our story this week. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments or questions about this episode or previous episodes, cryptobiography@gmail.com, or hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. And thank you for listening. Words and music are copyright 2019 CryptoBiography LLC, all rights reserved. Characters and events are fictional, fictionalized, or satirical.